So, Fight Week is here, and UFC 299 is this Saturday. We're going to make our predictions for the main card. And Mark, let's start with the main event. We have Marlon Chito Vera versus Sean O'Malley. What's your prediction for this fight and why?
You can't go against Sugar, I don't think, in this. The things that he's done since the last outing that these two had, you can't argue against it. He's a knockout machine. He's entertaining. He's proved that he's got the cardio. He's proved that he is a top contender by knocking out the champion. I don't really think you can cement a fairer statement than that, really. I see it as a bit of a mismatch, as crazy as that sounds to say. But are you in agreement? What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I cannot pick against O'Malley. I think I've picked him to win every single one of his fights because obviously I've got 100% pick rate, as we know, and I always get it right. And with Sean O'Malley, I think he's just too good, right? And like you were saying, it is a mismatch. And I'm going to go fourth round KO for Sean O'Malley. I think he's going to lay into those championship rounds. Chito Vera is going to be behind on the cards, and he's going to have to go, right, okay, I'm going to have to put my foot on the gas, and he's going to make some big mistakes and get caught.
That's exactly, it seems to be Chito's game plan for every fight. He gets going later on. And it's a slow burn, but I actually don't think that it's going to go that long. I don't think Sean's going to give him chance to get going. I think I'm predicting a second round. Probably a TKO. I don't think he's going to be able to knock Chito out cold. But I think a second round TKO is going to prove that was a minor blip in my career. And I've shot off to stardom whilst you've been inconsistent in your career. I think that's what's going to happen. An early TKO win for Sean O'Malley. First defense in the bag.
So with that loss to Marlon Chito Vera, do you count that as a loss for Sean O'Malley, or do you think there's a little something extra to it?
It's technically a loss in the record books, isn't it? But I think we all know, watching that as fans, Sean was piecing him up during that before he sustained that ankle injury. And then slimy Chito Vera, like Randall Weems from Recess.
Mister, those girls over there said a bad word.
Just jumped straight in, rubbing his hands, seeing that Sean was hurt. Came in, landed that big elbow. Sean, you even watch that fight back. Sean didn't even grab his face. He wasn't hurt, really. He just grabbed his ankle. That's it. It wasn't really that much of a loss, was it? Come on. It's like the John Jones loss. It wasn't. Yeah. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, 100%. It's difficult, isn't it? Because everyone knows an injury loss only counts if you don't like the fighter, right? That's the only way it counts. Otherwise, like, nah, it don't matter. It doesn't matter. And I think they've gone completely different directions, haven't they, in their career? And I feel like Chito Vera's made a career of knocking off old men, and claiming that as a victory. And I just don't think he's at that level to beat someone like O'Malley. I think he's in for a rough night, and I can't wait to see it.
There was a period a couple of years ago, though, wasn't there, where they both went their separate ways after the first fight, and they both had like a different path to the top. Like Chito, he ended up going down like the Corey Sandhagen route. I know it didn't go his way, but they were both on separate routes to the top of this division again. Obviously, Chito, with his inconsistent, it just kind of fluctuates up and down. But O'Malley, he's just been on a rocket ship throughout his entire career, just with a minor blip with Chito Vera in 2020, 4 years ago. So, I mean, come on, we're not classing that as the Marlon battered him, are we?
No, of course not. But some people talk about it in that way. The people are talking as though Chito Vera absolutely rocked Sean O'Malley. And you think, well, O'Malley was battering him on the feet. And then after the injury, he was still giving him a lot of problems. And then he overextended. And then Chito Vera took advantage of that. It's not as though he was causing. Well, I guess he did cause it. Kicked him in the leg, didn't I? I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but you like the fighter, so it doesn't matter, Dwayne.
Exactly. It doesn't count. It doesn't count. If O'Malley's never lost. Yeah, Connor's never lost either.
That's a different one. That's a different one, Dwayne.
So, let's move on now from one of my favorite fighters to one of my least favorite fighters. Dustin Poirier is fighting Benoit Saint-Denis. Mark, before we get into these predictions, I don't want to hear a word about Chris Benoit. Yeah? You're not allowed to make any jokes regarding that, okay? But what is your predictions for Benoit Saint-Denis versus Dustin Poirier?
I actually think Dustin may be in for a bit of a rude awakening, to be honest. It's strange how he took this fight anyway, but this is a golden opportunity for Benoit to be able to knock off Dustin Poirier, who's been solid in the rankings since, 2016 or something like that. this is a golden opportunity for him, and he's coming off a knockout loss from Justin Gaethje. If he can beat Dustin Poirier, this is like a fast track. This is like a Mario Kart booster in order to get put cemented in there, up there with the top of the division. This is his Sean O'Malley Petr Yan fight, where he just like, this is way too much of a boost for him. But if he can get it done, he can get it done. And I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. I think maybe even by decision, Benoit gets it done over Dustin Poirier.
Yeah, it could be. And I'm following you as well. I think Dustin Poirier is going to be in for a rude awakening here. I think Dustin's now hit that 35 mark. He's a bit older. He's come off that big KO loss to Justin Gaethje. And Benoit Saint-Denis, Mark, he's had, I believe, 14 finishes in his last 15 fights. So he's a finishing machine. And I think he's going to finish Dustin in the second round. I think by submission. I think he's going to drop Dustin with some big KO power, and then when he drops him, he's going to jump on that, he's going to grapple him up, and he's going to submit Dustin. But, you know, I could be wrong. Obviously, I've never been wrong because I have a 100% pick rate, as we all know. But Dustin is a killer, though, isn't he? He really is a killer. And, you know, it's easier for us to go, yeah, he's a bit older now, he's going to get clocked off. But he has got a fantastic resume, and he's a fantastic fighter. You know, as much as I dislike him, he can still be dangerous, and he could get Benoit Saint-Denis out there quite easily as well, right?
Absolutely. I mean, love him or hate him, you cannot argue with Dustin Poirier. When he comes in and he's level, he's ready, and he's game, and he's giving it all this, rearranging his shorts so he don't get that little ball vagina, and he's giving it all this like throughout the entire rounds. That's when Dustin's dangerous. Well, we thought that until the last fight. You've got to remember who he is, though. That's the thing. It's who Dustin Poirier is. You just mentioned then about his resume. Dustin's got probably one of the most impressive resumes in the entire UFC. The names that he's fought and beat is insane. And to say that he's never been champion is crazy.
It is crazy, isn't it? And I think that's always what's let Dustin down, hasn't it? I always feel like, you know, he's never achieved that gold. If it was for an interim gold, he's laughing, you know, he's there for it. But I think he struggles just when it comes to that championship mindset. I've said it before. I think when he took that third rematch with Conor, that to me showed that he's not championship orientated. You know, he's more focused on money, which is absolutely fine. You know, so am I. I'd love to have a big pile of cash. I'd love to get beaten up by Conor for a big bag of money. You know, gladly. But Dustin has always sort of been money orientated. You know, he's always said, right, if I'm gonna fight someone lower down, I need the money, right? They've got to pay me good, or it's got to be a big name. So why is he fighting Benoit Saint-Denis? Did it surprise you fighting him?
Absolutely, because he said in the past about Beneil Dariush, and he said, no, that fight wouldn't really interest me. So you're like, well, we've got this Benoit Saint-Denis coming in. You're like, where's this just come from? We've got David Copperfield there, like, wait, we've got a number 12 rank, haven't you? But Dustin, you know, like, I hope he isn't overlooking him, because Dustin's got to be very careful, because the last Benoit fight I heard about ended up in a double murder case. So he's got to be extremely careful about where he places himself in this fight.
I warned you, Mark. I said he's not allowed. I'm going to cut this out, yeah? It's not even going to be in the video.
Can't resist.
I'll just edit you out completely. This will just be a solo video of me talking for 10 minutes.
Yeah, like the WWE Network did.
Yeah. Right, yeah. And I agree, though. Well, not about the Chris Benoit bit, but...
yeah.
But I am confused why he's taking this fight, right? Unless they're paying him a big pile of cash, a win over this doesn't get him towards a title shot. It doesn't move him forward in his career, you know. And if he does beat him, people go, well, he's not even a top guy. Of course you're going to beat him, you know. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation for Dustin, isn't it? I'm surprised he's not fighting just sort of big names, you know. Like he could have had the rematch with Max Holloway rather than Justin or something like that, or for RDA, you know, these sort of named big name fighters. But you know, it's an interesting one. I'm not sure why he's doing it. But someone who is a big name who's coming on this card and making his debut is Michael Venom Page, and he's fighting Kevin Holland. What's your prediction for this fight and why?
I think Kevin Holland's going to be too much for him. I think Kevin Holland is relentless pressure. I don't think we're going to see a finish. I think we're probably going to see a decision win for Kevin Holland. And by the way, what a fight to welcome him into UFC. This is we say every single card, there's a fans main event, isn't there? I think this is what this fight is. We've got MVP. Everyone's seen the videos. We've seen the horrible skull crack video and the Pokeball that he used to throw and that kind of thing. I don't think we're going to see any Pokeballs being thrown in this one. I think Kevin Holland is going to welcome him, and just with his awkward style, we're going to see the Kevin Holland of 2020, I believe, where he was fighting 5 times a year, getting these knockouts, maybe even a little bit of showboating, because we know that MVP liked to do that as well. This is one that I can't wait for, and I think it's at a perfect place on the card as well, just to give you that little wake me up for us European fans. And then for the main event, I think it's going to be fantastic. Do you have a specific prediction for this one?
Yeah, I'm following you exactly. I'm going Kevin Holland by decision. I think MVP's a great fighter. He's really entertaining. But I don't think he's good enough. I really don't think he is this UFC level fighter. I think he's an entertaining Bellator, PFL, run-of-the-mill organization.
Yeah. Little pissant company, yeah.
Yeah. But, I think that's ideal for him. And maybe if he'd become a bit younger, possibly, but, he's here to put an entertaining fights. And fighting Kevin Holland is going to be an entertaining fight, unless Kevin Holland has a point to prove. And he comes out and takes this serious. And I think if he takes it serious, he's going to mop the floor with MVP. I think his striking is just as good, if not slightly better. His grappling's better. He's got experience at that top level in the UFC. And I just think, and he's younger. I just think there's too many cards stacked in Kevin Holland's favor. And I think he's going to just run through MVP, unfortunately. And I think they're both great fighters. But they've both got decent chins. So I don't think either's going to finish each other. And I think just a decision win for Kevin Holland. Unless Kevin Holland does what he did with Wonder Boy, played around with him and made it too fun, and then all of a sudden he's behind on the cards, and it's like, oh, what am I going to do now? That's the issue I can see happening. But sort of, Mark, with MVP and him now making his UFC debut at 36, are you worried that he's coming a bit too late? He's almost coming in at the end of his career, and his UFC run could be over before it even gets going.
Yeah, it's strange with these big the spectacle fighters sort of thing who they like, for a UFC fan solidly, like that's all you watch. You've heard of these names. You've heard of Michael Chandler, Paddy Pimblett, MVP, these other names. So we are getting this fight, but contracts might have played a part in it, all that. Is this a middleweight or a welterweight fight?
I believe I'm not sure.
I believe it's middleweight, but in that sense,
yeah, it's welterweight.
No, it's a welterweight fight. So in that sense, you go, well, is age gonna play a factor, because obviously they're lighter? But don't forget, MVP was at the top of his game as well. So it's not as if he's just some beaten down fighter and then we finally get it.
That's true.
So this could be absolute perfect timing, because he'd be classed as a veteran now. He'd be well rounded. He's done the rounds. So to come in against Kevin Holland, the bright lights aren't gonna make an effect, but this is his debut. What a welcome to the UFC. This is like the Michael Chandler versus Dan Hooker of welterweight for me, anyway. It's a good name welcoming you into the UFC. Maybe it'll even go that way as well. MVP could shock us with a first round knockout.
Yeah, it could, couldn't it? But that's the thing, because MVP's coming in as a big name. He's coming in as a star, locked and loaded. And a big win over here could maybe give him that little run towards a gold. It's unlikely, but it's certainly possible. But I think, he's near the tail end of his career now. And to be honest, I don't think he really fought some huge names in Bellator. I think he kind of got a bit of a cherry-picked performance. He's never been a champion in MMA. He's not. I just don't think he's at that level. And I think it's a shame. But, it is what it is. Either way, it's going to be a fun fight, isn't it? And then, Mike, we move on to Australia's own Della Maddalena facing off against Gilbert Burns. What's your prediction for this fight and why?
I don't think I actually have one as anticlimactic as that sounds. I've gone both ways here, but there's a lot of factors coming into this because Gilbert Burns is no joke. To say the age that he is he 37 or something? And Jack's like 10 years, younger than him.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. There's a lot that's coming in, but Gilbert's no joke at all. I could probably see a decision happening for Gilbert, but that's probably my decision. A safe bet, very boring, very grey, very John Major, dull decision. But there you go. That's what I'm going for.
Well, I'm joining you on the dull train. I'm going Gilbert Burns by decision. I love JDM. You know, he's becoming one of my sort of favorite fighters. I really love watching him fight, but I just don't think he's got that experience at that high level yet. And I think Gilbert Burns might be the one to knock him off. But you know, I could be wrong. Well, again, remember, I've never been wrong. I've got 100% pick rate. Gilbert Burns, I think, is just too skilled. And I think JDM, unfortunately, isn't going to be able to get going. And if he's going to win, it's going to have to be by knockout. And I think Gilbert Burns only been finished once at welterweight, and that's against Kamaru Usman. He got finished at 155 quite a bit, but I always found that a bit different. I think when you're making those big cuts, it makes your chin a lot weaker, doesn't it? You're more fatigued and you get caught. I don't think he's going to get finished by JDM. So I think it's going to be a lot of grappling and clinching up against the fence, and I think that's going to get him the decision win. But Mark, if JDM does get the win here, that sets him at the top of the pile, right? He can come out as this big contender straight away. Do you think that puts him in for a title run in the near future?
It definitely cements him up there. To knock someone off like Gilbert Burns. Welterweight's a strange one. Them top 5 and, maybe even chomping at the bit, top 6, 7 people. There's a lot of interesting fights. I actually hope that Jack can get it done because then it just mixes up this division and it opens up for so many more fun matchups. You've got Shavkat, you've got Ian Gary, you've even got, I won't even include Colby Covington after that piss poor performance that he gave last year. But it just opens up for so much more though, doesn't it? And you're like, oh, it's a fresh new face. Someone who's knocked off Gilbert Burns, and now he's coming in. And like you say, it's a well-established fighter. If you've tuned in for his fights before, you're well aware of what he's capable of. If you haven't, you're really missing out on a treat. So I'd really watch this one as well. This one could be an unsung banger. It could be a dark horse on the card.
Yeah, it really is. This is a dark horse fight, and it could easily be fight of the night, 100%. I mean, both of these guys are good to go. They're chomping at the bit, and they've both got a lot on stake here. The winner of this gets pushed back to that top of that division, and Gilbert Burns, he's 37 now. He ain't got long left. If he's going to make one more run at the title, this is his move forward, isn't it? And it's exactly the same for JDM. A win here gets him towards that title. So both guys are going to come out with a lot to offer. And then, Mark, opening the card, we have Petr Yan versus Song Yadong. What's your prediction for this fight and why?
I'm going to go Peter by decision.
My name, Petr.
Petr by decision, sorry. I'm always doing that.
Yeah, you'll get upset with Petr there.
Oh, yeah, because Petr Yan always watches Northernlights on YouTube, doesn't he?
He's a #1 fan, yeah?
Yeah. Petr does need this win. He definitely does need it. And I don't. Do you think that the knockout machine, the savage beast, no mercy, the clue is in the nickname of Petr Yan, has showed up for the last few fights? I don't believe he's been there. I think he can maybe edge a decision over Song Yadong, but I don't think he's got that killer instinct that we've been accustomed to in the past. Do you remember with the Jose Aldo fight? He looked like he was coming for his head. I think the referee actually wanted to see a murder in real life anyway. So I think that Petr may be able to just about get it done, but I don't think it's going to be. I think it's going to be quite a lackluster performance, to be honest.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult one, isn't it? I really don't know which way I'm leaning on this because both guys are complete killers. Both have fantastic cardio. Both have great pacing, great pressure. And Song Yadong is very, very athletic. But Petr Yan has that experience at the top level. I think I'm going to go Petr Yan by decision, just. I think Song's going to come out really hard in the first round, come swing. And I think then Petr's going to slow down in the second and the third, take his time and piece him up, stay out of range, and just let Song Yadong keep swinging. I think that's going to get him the decision win. But honestly, I really don't know. I think it's real 50-50 with this fight. It can go either way. And Mark, so with Petr Yan losing 4 of his last 5, do you think a loss against Song Yadong could mean the end of his career in the UFC?
It could be one of those where he's kind of forced into it in that sense of like the psychological effects of it to lose 5 in a row. Surely you'd be sat there thinking, maybe I just don't. I can't predict what he's going to think, obviously. But in that sense, you've got to go, well, I felt like I was at the top of my game, but maybe I'm clearly not. It just seemed like that knee that he gave Aljamain Sterling tainted him. Anything after that, just he hasn't been able to get much going, you know. People were writing off Sean O'Malley in his fight, and, you know, he's shown him something that he didn't expect to have. And Merab fairly nailed him, didn't he? And, yeah, so you never know. If you can't get through Song, maybe it will be time just to have a think like, what do I want to do? Maybe even a different weight class, maybe not necessarily retire, but a different weight class could maybe be an option. Some people have done that, and I don't know. It'd be a shame to see him fall off because it would be a big what if moment, wouldn't it? He was the champion, and the fall from grace is quite high.
Yeah, definitely. But I think Petr Yan will make a fantastic champion in PFL because that's where he's heading next, I can guarantee. But, you know, jokes aside, Petr Yan's a great fighter. He really, really is. And, you know, I think if you can get that mojo back, we can see him back at the top of that division. But I've said it a million times before, haven't I? When a fighter gets a string of losses, it's so hard to pull it back because you're desperate for that win. So you put yourself in risky positions, and the same thing might happen on Saturday. But that's our predictions for the main card. Is there any other fights, Mark, that we should be looking out for on the prelims and the early prelims?
One I think that you should all watch out for is Curtis Blades versus Jailton Almeida. I'm biased. I love the heavyweight fights. I think it's fantastic. This one can be, I don't think this is going to be a stand and bang at all. Jailton has been on an absolute tear, and Curtis Blades is the perfect test for him. 2 big grapplers, known for the grappling. Curtis can bang as well. I think this is one that I'm not going to miss. And I think everyone watching this should be pleasantly surprised by this one as well. We've got plenty of other fights, well-known fighters. We've got Mateus Gamrot versus RDA, your old favourite, Rafael.
Yeah, I love RDA, yeah.
That's one that you got to watch out for. Another one very quickly, I think one to worth mentioning is Michael Pereira is on this card. I hope I've said that right. Literally the definition of when you get a new UFC game and you don't know the buttons. You're just flipping around, punching midair, and trying to do spinning back kicks to nothing at all. There's also just one to watch out for, lastly, Ion Cutelaba, the light heavyweight who is always fun to watch just because he gives it the big licks on the fight week in the weigh-ins. You know, the stare down before that just to get finished in the first round. So if you want a quick night at the office, don't blink and tune in for his fight.
Yeah, well, I really, really can't wait for UFC 299. It's a fun card. And it might be one of the biggest cards of the year. And it's a good run-up to 300 and for the rest of the year. If you are going to be watching the fight, make sure you pop in and say hello because Mark and I will be doing a live watch-along. Thank you for watching. If you can like, comment, and subscribe, it really does help us out.